Imagine you're walking through a dense forest. The first time, there's no path. Every step is difficult. You push branches aside. You stumble over rocks. You have to think about every move. But imagine walking that exact same route every single day. After a week, a narrow trail begins to appear. After a month, the grass disappears. After a year, there's a clear path through the forest. Walking becomes effortless. Not because the forest changed overnight, but because the same route was used again and again and again. Your brain works in almost exactly the same way. Every thought, every action, every habit leaves behind a tiny pathway. The first time you do something, the pathway is weak. The second time, it's a little stronger. The 100th time, your brain barely has to think anymore. What once required effort now feels automatic. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. Simply put, your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you repeatedly do. It doesn't judge your habits. It doesn't ask whether they're helping you or hurting you. It only asks one question: how often is this happening? The more often the answer is very often, the stronger that pathway becomes. That's why driving a car eventually feels effortless. Why tying your shoes requires no thought. Why you can remember the lyrics to songs you haven't heard in years. Repetition changes the brain. But here's the part most people never realize. The exact same process builds anxiety, procrastination, phone addiction, negative thinking. Every time you react to stress by reaching for your phone, your brain quietly learns stress equals scrolling. Every time boredom leads to social media, it learns boredom equals entertainment. Every time sadness leads to junk food, it learns pain equals comfort eating. None of these habits appear overnight. They're built one repetition at a time. And because they're built gradually, most people don't notice them forming. Until one day they catch themselves unlocking their phone without remembering picking it up, or opening the refrigerator without feeling hungry. The habit has become stronger than the decision. But here's the incredible part. The brain doesn't care whether a pathway is old. It only cares which pathway is used most. Imagine two trails through that forest. One has been walked for years. The other is brand new. At first, everyone naturally takes the older trail. It's wider, easier, familiar. But if you stop using it, nature slowly begins to reclaim it. Grass grows back, branches fall across it, the trail becomes harder to follow. Meanwhile, the new path becomes clearer every day you choose it. The same thing happens inside your brain. Old habits don't disappear because you hate them. They weaken because you stop feeding them. And new habits don't become automatic because they're exciting. They become automatic because they're repeated. This is why lasting change rarely comes from making one huge decision. It comes from making one small decision, repeated hundreds of times. Your brain isn't transformed by motivation. It's transformed by repetition. The life you have today is, in many ways, a reflection of what your brain has practiced the most, which means the future version of you is being trained by the choices you repeat today. But if repetition is the key to changing the brain, why do so many people quit before new habits take root? Why does motivation disappear just when we need it most? Because the biggest mistake people make is believing motivation comes first. In reality, it comes much later. And that's where our story goes next. Think back to the last time you decided to change your life. Maybe it was New Year's Day. Maybe it was after watching an inspiring video. Or maybe it was after looking in the mirror and saying, "Enough is enough." In that moment, you felt unstoppable. You made a plan. You bought new clothes, downloaded a fitness app, made a schedule, promised yourself that this time, things would be different. And for a few days, they were. You woke up early, you exercised, you stayed focused, you resisted distractions. It felt like you'd finally become the person you always wanted to be. But then, something changed. The excitement faded. The alarm became harder to ignore. The gym felt exhausting. Healthy food suddenly seemed boring. Your phone became impossible to put down. Within weeks, you were back where you started. Most people think this happens because motivation disappears. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is believing that motivation was supposed to stay in the first place. Motivation isn't permanent. It was never meant to be. Imagine you're starting a campfire. At first, you need a spark. Without it, nothing happens. But once the fire begins to grow, the spark becomes irrelevant. The fire keeps burning because of the wood you continue adding. Motivation works the same way. It's only the spark. Habits are the fuel. Many people spend their entire lives chasing another spark, another motivational video, another inspiring speech, another Monday, another New Year, believing that the next burst of motivation will finally change everything. But motivation is an emotion, and emotions are temporary. Some mornings you'll wake up feeling unstoppable. Other mornings you'll want to stay in bed. If your habits depend on how you feel, then your future will always depend on your mood. The most successful people aren't constantly motivated. In fact, many of them don't feel like working either. The difference is, They've built systems that keep moving even when motivation disappears. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably don't wake up every morning overflowing with excitement to brush them. You simply do it. Not because you're inspired, but because the behavior has become part of your identity. Imagine if exercise felt that automatic, or reading, or studying, or putting your phone away before bed. That's the real goal. Not to become endlessly motivated, but to make good habits feel as normal as brushing your teeth. And here's something fascinating. Researchers have found that taking action often creates motivation, not the other way around. Most people wait until they feel motivated before they begin. But the brain often works in reverse. You start with one small action. That action creates progress. Progress creates satisfaction. Satisfaction creates motivation. In other words, motivation is often the reward for taking action, not the requirement. That's why the hardest part of almost any task is simply beginning. Once you take the first step, your brain starts building momentum. 1 page becomes 10. 5 minutes of exercise becomes 30. 1 healthy meal becomes a healthier day. Action creates belief. Belief creates consistency, and consistency slowly rewires the brain. So perhaps we've been asking the wrong question all along. Instead of asking, how do I stay motivated? Maybe we should ask, how do I make starting so easy that motivation doesn't matter? Because once you understand that, you're no longer waiting for inspiration. You're building a life that moves forward, whether you feel inspired or not. But even if you build great habits, one question still remains. If our brains naturally chase pleasure, what actually leads to a fulfilling life? Because as it turns out, the things that feel good immediately are often very different from the things that make us truly happy. And that's the final lesson our ancient brain has to learn. Think about the last time you spent an entire evening scrolling through social media. One video became another, then another. Before you realized it, hours had disappeared. For a moment, it felt entertaining. But when you finally put your phone down, did you feel fulfilled? Probably not. Now think about something different. Remember the last time you learned something new. Maybe you finally understood a difficult concept, cooked a meal you were proud of, finished reading a great book, completed a project after weeks of hard work, or simply had a long conversation with someone you care about. Those moments usually weren't the easiest. They took time, patience, and sometimes frustration. But somehow, they stayed with you much longer. Why? Because your brain isn't just collecting moments of pleasure. It's also searching for experiences that matter. The problem is, modern life gives us thousands of quick rewards every day. But the things that give life meaning usually arrive much more slowly. A 5-second notification can grab your attention, but earning someone's trust takes years. Watching a motivational video feels good for a few minutes. Actually changing your life takes consistent effort. One path offers instant satisfaction, the other offers lasting fulfillment. And every single day, your brain quietly asks you to choose between them. The amazing part is, your brain doesn't stay the same. The choices you repeat today become the preferences of tomorrow. Choose comfort often enough, and comfort becomes your default. Choose growth often enough, and growth slowly starts to feel natural. Your brain is always adapting. The question isn't whether it will change. The question is, what direction are you training it to change? Your brain isn't broken. It isn't working against you. It's simply following the patterns you've repeated the most. And once you understand that, you stop fighting your brain and start teaching it. Imagine 2 people. Both have the same brain, the same instincts, the same desire for comfort, the same temptation to choose what's easy. Yet years later, their lives look completely different. One person spends every day reacting. Every notification steals their attention. Every craving controls their decisions. Every difficult moment sends them looking for an escape. Without realizing it, they're letting their brain make every choice. The other person still feels those same temptations. They still want to stay in bed some mornings. They still crave unhealthy food. They still get distracted. The difference is, they've learned to pause, just for a moment, long enough to ask themselves one simple question. Is this what I truly want, or is this simply what my brain wants right now? That tiny pause may be one of the greatest abilities humans have ever developed, because unlike every other animal on Earth, we can think about our own thinking. We can question our instincts. We can choose a future reward over an immediate one. And every time we make that choice, we're not ignoring our brain. We're leading it. Your brain isn't your enemy. It has been protecting humans for hundreds of thousands of years. Without it, our ancestors would never have survived. But evolution prepared your brain for a world of uncertainty, not a world of unlimited food, infinite entertainment, and constant distraction. The world changed. Your brain didn't. That's why the battle you fight every day isn't really against social media, junk food, or bad habits. It's the collision between an ancient brain and a modern world. Understanding that changes everything. Because the moment you stop blaming yourself, you can finally start changing yourself. Not through guilt, not through endless motivation, but through small choices, repeated every single day. The habits you build today become the person you meet tomorrow. So the next time your brain tells you to choose what's easy, pause for just a second and ask yourself, am I feeding a temporary craving or building the future I actually want? Because every choice teaches your brain what to love. And over time, your brain becomes a reflection of what you repeatedly choose. Perhaps your brain doesn't love what hurts you. Perhaps it simply can't tell the difference between what helped humans survive yesterday and what helps humans thrive today. The good news is, evolution gave you something even more powerful than instinct: the ability to learn, to adapt, and to choose. Your brain will always offer you the easy path, but your future will be shaped by the path you decide to walk. So maybe the real question was never, why does my brain love what hurts me? Maybe the better question is, what do I want to teach my brain to love? Because the answer to that question may shape the rest of your life.